The Man in the High Castle, Cassette 4.
"Time to eat," Betty said, sliding to her feet. "Please come, 2 hungry gentlemen businessmen." She cajoled Robert and Paul to the dining table, already set with white tablecloth, silver, china, huge rough napkins in what Robert recognized as early American bone napkin rings. The silver, too, was sterling silver American. The cups and saucers were Royal Albert, deep blue and yellow. Very exceptional. He could not help glancing at them with professional admiration. The plates were not American. They appeared to be Japanese. He could not tell, it being beyond his field. "That is Imari porcelain," Paul said, perceiving his interest. "From Arita. Considered a first-place product, Japan." They seated themselves. "Coffee?" Betty asked Robert. "Yes," he said. "Thanks." "Toward end of meal," she said, going to get the serving card. Soon they were all eating. Robert found the meal delicious. She was quite an exceptional cook. The salad in particular pleased him. Avocados, artichoke heart, some kind of blue cheese dressing. Thank God they had not presented him with a Japanese meal, the dishes of mixed greens and meats of which he had eaten so much since the war. And the unending seafoods. He had gotten so that he could no longer abide shrimp or any other shellfish. "I would like to know," Robert said, "what he supposes it would be like in world where Germany and Japan lost the war." Neither Paul nor Betty answered for a time. Then Paul said at last, "Very complicated differences. Better to read the book. It would spoil it for you, possibly, to hear." "I have strong convictions on the subject," Robert said. "I have frequently thought it over. The world would be much worse." He heard his voice sound out firm, virtually harsh. "Much worse." They seemed taken by surprise. Perhaps it was his tone. "Communism would rule everywhere," Robert continued. Paul nodded. "The author, Mr. H. Abinson, considers that point as to unchecked spread of Soviet Russia. But same as in First World War, even on winning side, second-rate, mostly peasant Russia naturally takes pratfall. Big laughingstock, recalling Japan war with them when—" "We have had to suffer to pay the cost," Robert said. "But we did it for a good cause, to stop Slavic world inundation." Betty said in a low voice, "Personally, I do not believe any hysterical talk of world inundation by any people, Slavic or Chinese or Japanese." She regarded Robert placidly. She was in complete control of herself, not carried away, but she intended to express her feeling. A spot of color, deep red, had appeared in each of her cheeks. They ate for a time without conversing. "I did it again," Robert Childan informed himself. "Impossible to avoid the topic, because it's everywhere, in a book I happen to pick up or a record collection, in these bone napkin rings, loot piled up by the conquerors. Pillage from my people. Face facts. I'm trying to pretend that these Japanese and I are alike, but observe, even when I burst out as to my gratification that they won the war, that my nation lost, there's still no common ground. What words mean to me is sharp contrast vis-à-vis them. Their brains are different, souls likewise. Witness them drinking from English bone china cups, eating with U.S. silver, listening to Negro style of music. It's all on the surface. Advantage of wealth and power makes this available to them, but it's ersatz as the day is long. Even the I Ching, which they've forced down our throats, it's Chinese, borrowed from way back when. Whom are they fooling? Themselves? pilfer customs right and left, wear, eat, talk, walk, as for instance, consuming with gusto baked potato served with sour cream and chives, old-fashioned American dish added to their haul. But nobody fooled, I can tell you. Me least of all. Only the white races endowed with creativity, he reflected. And yet I, blood member of same, must bump head to floor for these too. Think how it would have been had we won, would have crushed them out of existence. No Japan today, and the USA gleaming great sole power in entire wide world. He thought, I must read that grasshopper book. Patriotic duty from the sound of it. Betty said softly to him, Robert, you're not eating. Is the food misprepared? At once he took a forkful of salad. No, he said, it is virtually the most delicious meal I have had in years. Thank you, she said, obviously pleased. Doing my best to be authentic, for instance, carefully shopping in teeny-tiny American markets down along Mission Street. Understand that's the real McCoy. You cook the native foods to perfection, Robert Childan thought. What they say is true. Your powers of imitation are immense. Apple pie, Coca-Cola, stroll after the movie, Glenn Miller. You could paste together out of tin and rice paper a complete artificial America. Rice paper mom in the kitchen, rice paper dad reading the newspaper, rice paper pup at his feet. Everything. Paul was watching him silently. Robert Childan, suddenly noticing the man's attention, ceased his line of thought and applied himself to his food. Can he read my mind? He wondered. See what I'm really thinking. I know I did not show it. I kept the proper expression. He could not possibly tell. Robert, Paul said, since you were born and raised here, speaking the U.S. idiom, perhaps I could get your help with a book which has given me certain trouble. Novel from the 1930s by a U.S. author. Robert bowed slightly. The book, Paul said, which is quite rare, and which I possess a copy of nonetheless, is by Nathaniel West. Title is Miss Lonely Hearts. I have read it with enjoyment, but do not totally grasp N. West's meaning. He looked hopefully at Robert. Presently, Robert Childan admitted, I have never read that book, I fear. Nor, he thought, even heard of it. Disappointment showed in Paul's expression. Too bad. It is a tiny book. Tells about man who runs column in daily paper. Receives heartache problems constantly, until evidently driven mad by pain and has delusion that he is J. Christ. Do you recall? Perhaps read long ago. No, Robert said. Gives strange view about suffering, Paul said. Insight of most original kind into meaning of pain for no reason. Problem which all religions cope with. Religions such as Christian often declare must be sin to account for suffering. N. West seems to add more compelling view of this over older notions. N. West possibly saw could be suffering without cause due to his being a Jew. Robert said, if Germany and Japan had lost the war, the Jews would be running the world today, through Moscow and Wall Street. The two Japanese, man and wife, seemed to shrink. They seemed to fade, grow cold, descend into themselves. The room itself grew cold. Robert Childan felt alone, eating by himself, no longer in their company. What had he done now? What had they misunderstood? Stupid inability on their part to grasp alien tongue, the Western thought. Eluded them, and so they took umbrage. What a tragedy, he thought as he continued eating. And yet, what could be done? Former clarity, that of only a moment ago, had to be drawn on for all it was worth. Full extent not glimpsed until now. Robert Childan did not feel quite as badly as before, because the nonsensical dream had begun to lift from his mind. I showed up here with such anticipation, he recalled. Near adolescent romantic haze befuddling me as I ascended stairs. But reality cannot be ignored. We must grow up. And this is the straight dope right here. These people are not exactly human. They don the dress, but they're like monkeys dolled up in a circus. They're clever and can learn, but that is all. Why do I cater to them? Due solely to their having won? Big flaw in my character revealed through this encounter. But such is the way it goes. I have pathetic tendency to, well, shall we say, unerringly choose the easier of two evils. Like a cow catching sight of the trough, I gallop without premeditation. What I've been doing is to go along with the exterior motions because it is safer. After all, these are the victors. They command. And I will go on doing it, I guess. Because why should I make myself unhappy? They read an American book and want me to explain it to them. They hope that I, a white man, can give them the answer. And I try. But in this case I can't, although, had I read it, I no doubt could. Perhaps one day I'll have a look at that Miss Lonely Heart's book, he said to Paul, and then I can convey to you its significance. Paul nodded slightly. However, at present I am too busy with my work, Robert said. Later on, perhaps. I am sure it wouldn't take me very long. No, Paul murmured. Very short book. Both he and Betty looked sad, Robert Childan thought. He wondered if they, too, sensed the unbridgeable gap between themselves and him. Hope so, he thought. They deserved to. A shame, just have to ferret out Book's message on their own. He ate with more enjoyment. No further friction marred the evening. When he left the Kasura's apartment at 10 o'clock, Robert Childan still felt the sense of confidence which had overtaken him during the meal. He meandered down the apartment house stairs with no genuine concern as to the occasional Japanese residents who, on their way to and from the communal baths, might notice him and stare. Out onto the dark evening sidewalk, then the hailing of a passing pedicab. And he was thereupon on his trip home. I always wondered what it would be like to meet certain customers socially. Not so bad, after all. And, he thought, this experience may well help me in my business. It is therapeutic to meet these people who have intimidated you, and to discover what they're really like. Then the intimidation goes. Thinking along those lines, he arrived at his own neighborhood and finally at his own door. He paid the chink pedicab driver and ascended the familiar stairs. There, in his front room, sat a man he did not know. A white man wearing an overcoat, sitting on the couch reading the newspaper. As Robert Childan stood astonished in the doorway, the man put down his newspaper, leisurely rose, and reached into his breast pocket. He brought out a wallet and displayed it. Kempei Tai. He was a Pinnock, employee of Sacramento and its state police, installed by the Japanese occupation authorities. Frightening. "You're Art Childan?" "Yes, sir," he said. His heart pounded. "Recently," the policeman said, consulting a clipboard of papers which he had taken from a briefcase on the couch, "you were paid a visit by a man, a white, describing himself as representing an officer of the Imperial Navy. Subsequent investigation showed that this was not so. No such officer existed, no such ship. He eyed Childan. "That's correct," Childan said. "We have a report," the policeman continued, "of a racket being conducted in the Bay Area. This fellow evidently was involved. Would you describe him?" "Small, rather dark-skinned," Childan began. "Jewish?" "Yes," Childan said, "now that I think about it, although I overlooked it at the time." "Here's a photo." The Kempeitai man passed it to him. "That's him," Childan said, experiencing recognition beyond any doubt. He was a little appalled by the Kempeitai's power of detection. "How'd you find him?" "I didn't report it, but I telephoned my jobber, Ray Calvin, and told him—" The policeman waved him silent. "I have a paper for you to sign, and that's all. You won't have to appear in court. This is a legal formality that ends your involvement." He handed Childan the paper, plus pen. "This states that you were approached by this man, and that he tried to swindle you by misrepresenting himself, and so forth. You read the paper." The policeman rolled back his cuff and examined his watch as Robert Childan read the paper. "Is that substantially correct?" It was, substantially. Robert Childan did not have time to give the paper thorough attention, and anyhow he was a little confused as to what had happened that day, but he knew that the man had misrepresented himself, and that some racket was involved, and, as the Kempeitai man had said, the fellow was a Jew. Robert Childan glanced at the name beneath the photo of the man. Frank Fink. Born Frank Fink. Yes, he certainly was a Jew. Anybody could tell with a name like Fink. And he had changed it. Childan signed the paper. "Thanks," the policeman said. He gathered up his things, tipped his hat, wished Childan good night, and departed. The whole business had taken only a moment. I guess they got him, Childan thought. Whatever he was up to. Great relief. They work fast, all right. We live in a society of law and order where Jews can't pull their subtleties on the innocent. We're protected. I don't know why I didn't recognize the racial characteristics when I saw him. Evidently I'm easily deceived. He decided, I'm simply not capable of deceit, and that renders me helpless. Without law, I'd be at their mercy. He could have convinced me of anything. It's a form of hypnosis. They can control an entire society. Tomorrow, I will have to go out and buy that Grasshopper book, he told himself. It'll be interesting to see how the author depicts a world run by Jews and communists, with the Reich in ruins, Japan no doubt a province of Russia. In fact, with Russia extending from the Atlantic to the Pacific. I wonder if he, whatever his name is, depicts a war between Russia and the USA. Interesting book, he thought. Odd, nobody thought of writing it before. He thought, it should help to bring home to us how lucky we are. In spite of the obvious disadvantages, we could be so much worse off. Great moral lesson pointed out by that book. Yes, there are Japs in power here, and we have to build. Out of this are coming great things, such as the colonization of the planets. There should be a news broadcast on, he realized. Seating himself, he turned on the radio. Maybe the new Reichschancellor has been picked. He felt excitement and anticipation. To me, that Zeiss Inquart seems the most dynamic, the most likely to carry out bold programs. I wish I was there, he thought. Possibly someday I'll be well enough off to travel to Europe and see all that has been done. Shame to miss out. Stuck here on the West Coast, where nothing is happening. History is passing us by. Chapter 8. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Freiherr Hugo Reis, the Reichsconsul in San Francisco, stepped from his Mercedes-Benz 220E and walked briskly up the steps of the consulate. Behind him came two young male employees of the Foreign Office. The door had been unlocked by Rice's staff, and he passed inside, raising his hand in greeting to the two switchboard girls, the vice-consul, Herr Frank, and then, in the inner office, Rice's secretary, Herr Verderhoef. "Freiherr," Verderhoef said, "there is a coded radiogram coming in just now from Berlin, Preface 1. That meant removing his overcoat and giving it to Verderhoef to hang up. "10 minutes ago, Herr Kreutz vom Meere called. He would like you to return his call." "Thank you," Rice said. He seated himself at the small table by the window of his office, removed the cover from his breakfast, saw on the plate the roll, scrambled eggs and sausage, poured himself hot black coffee from the silver pot, then unrolled his morning newspaper. The caller, Kreutz vom Meere, was the chief of the Sicherheitsdienst in the PSA area. His headquarters were located under a cover name at the air terminal. Relations between Rice and Kreutz vom Meere were rather strained. Their jurisdiction overlapped in countless matters, a deliberate policy, no doubt, of the higher-ups in Berlin. Rice held an honorary commission in the SS, the rank of major, and this made him technically Kreutz vom Meere's subordinate. The commission had been bestowed several years ago, and at that time Rice had discerned the purpose, but he could do nothing about it. Nonetheless, he chafed still. The newspaper, flown in by Lufthansa and arriving at 6 in the morning, was the Frankfurter Zeitung. Rice read the front page carefully. Von Schirach under house arrest, possibly dead by now. Too bad. Göring residing at a Luftwaffe training base, surrounded by experienced veterans of the war, all loyal to the Fat One. No one would slip up on him, no SD hatchetmen. And what about Dr. Goebbels? Probably in the heart of Berlin, depending as always on his own wit, his ability to talk his way out of anything. If Heydrich sends a squad to do him in, Rice reflected, the little doctor will not only argue them out of it, he will probably persuade them to switch over, make them employees of the Ministry for Propaganda and Public Enlightenment. He could imagine Dr. Goebbels at this moment, in the apartment of some stunning movie actress, disdaining the Wehrmacht units bumping through the streets below. Nothing frightened that Kerl. Goebbels would smile his mocking smile, continue stroking the lovely lady's bosom with his left hand, while writing his article for the day's Angriff with... Rice's thoughts were interrupted by his secretary's knock. "I'm sorry, Kreutz vom Meere is on the line again." Rising, Rice went to his desk and took the receiver. "Rice here," the heavy Bavarian accents of the local SD chief. "Any word on the Abwehr character?" Puzzled, Rice tried to make out what Kreutz von Meere was referring to. He murmured. "To my knowledge, there are 3 or 4 Abwehr characters on the Pacific coast at the moment. The one traveling in by Lufthansa within the last week." "Oh," Rice said. Holding the receiver between his ear and shoulder, he took out his cigarette case. "He never came in here." "What's he doing?" "God, I don't know. Ask Canaris." "I'd like you to call the Foreign Office and have them call the Chancery and have whoever's on hand get hold of the Admiralty and demand that the Abwehr either take its people back out of here or give us an account of why they're here." "Can't you do that?" "Everything's in confusion." "They've completely lost the Abwehr man," Rice decided. They, the local SD, were told by someone on Heydrich's staff to watch him, and they missed a connection. And now they want me to bail them out. "If he comes in here," Rice said, "I'll have somebody stay on him. You can rely on that." Of course, there was little or no chance that the man would come in, and they both knew that. "He undoubtedly uses a cover name," Kreutz von Meere plodded on. "We don't know it, naturally. He's an aristocratic-looking fellow, about 40, a captain, actual name Rudolf Wegener, one of those old monarchist families from East Prussia, probably supported von Papen in the Systemzeit." Rice made himself comfortable at his desk as Kreutz von Meere droned away. "The only answer, as I see it, to these monarchist hangers-on is to cut the budget of the Navy so they can't afford—" Finally, Rice managed to get off the phone. When he returned to his breakfast, he found the roll cold. The coffee, however, was still hot. He drank it, and resumed reading the newspaper. No end to it, he thought. Those SD people keep a shift on duty all night. Call you at 3 a.m. His secretary, Verderhoof, stuck his head into the office, saw that he was off the phone, and said, "Sacramento called just now in great agitation. They claim there's a Jew running around the streets of San Francisco." Both he and Rice laughed. "All right," Rice said. "Tell them to calm down and send us the regular papers. Anything else?" "You read the messages of condolence." "Are there more?" "A few. I'll keep them on my desk if you want them. I've already sent out answers." "I have to address that meeting today," Rice said. "At 1 this afternoon, those businessmen." "I won't let you forget," Verderhoof said. Rice leaned back in his chair. "Care to make a bet?" "Not on the Partei deliberations, if that's what you mean." "It'll be the hangman." Lingering, Verderhoof said, "Heydrich has gone as far as he can. Those people never pass over to direct Partei control because everyone is scared of them. The Partei bigwigs would have a fit even at the idea. You'd get a coalition in 25 minutes. As soon as the first SS car took off from Prince Albrechtstrasse, they'd have all those economic big shots like Krupp and Tyson." He broke off. One of the cryptographers had come up to him with an envelope. Rice held out his hand. His secretary brought the envelope to him. It was the urgent coded radiogram, decoded and typed out. When he finished reading it, he saw that Verderhoof was waiting to hear. Rice crumpled up the message in the big ceramic ashtray on his desk, lit it with his lighter. "There's a Japanese general supposed to be traveling here incognito. Tedeki. You better go down to the public library and get one of those official Japanese military magazines that would have his picture. Do it discreetly, of course. I don't think we'd have anything on him here." He started toward the locked filing cabinet, then changed his mind. "Get what information you can. The statistics, they should all be available at the library." He added, "This General Tedeki was a chief of staff a few years ago. Do you recall anything about him?" "Just a little," Verderhoof said. "Quite a fire-eater. He should be about 80 now. Seems to me he advocated some sort of crash program to get Japan into space." "On that he failed," Rice said. "I wouldn't be surprised if he's coming here for medical purposes," Verderhoof said. "There have been a number of old Japanese military men here to use the big UC hospital. That way they can make use of German surgical techniques they can't get at home. Naturally, they keep it quiet. Patriotic reasons, you know. So perhaps we should have somebody at the UC hospital watching, if Berlin wants to keep their eye on him." Rice nodded. Or the old general might be involved in commercial speculations, a good deal of which went on in San Francisco. Connections he had made while in service would be of use to him now that he was retired. Or was he retired? The message called him general, not retired general. "As soon as you have the picture," Rice said, "pass copies right on to our people at the airport and down at the harbor. He may have already come in. You know how long it takes them to get this sort of thing to us." And of course, if the general had already reached San Francisco, Berlin would be angry at the PSA consulate. The consulate should have been able to intercept him before the order from Berlin had even been sent. Verderhoof said, "I'll stamp date the coded radiogram from Berlin, so if any question comes up later on, we can show exactly when we received it, right to the hour." "Thank you," Rice said. The people in Berlin were past masters at transferring responsibility, and he was weary of being stuck. It had happened too many times. "Just to be on the safe side," he said, "I think I'd better have you answer that message. Say, your instructions abysmally tardy. Person already reported in area. Possibility of successful intercept remote at this stage." Put something along those lines into shape and send it. Keep it good and vague. You understand? Verderhoof nodded. "I'll send it right off, and keep a record of the exact date and moment it was sent." He shut the door after him. You have to watch out, Rice reflected. Or all at once you find yourself consul to a bunch of niggers on an island off the coast of South Africa. And the next you know, you have a black mammy for a mistress, and 10 or 11 little pickaninnies calling you daddy. Reseating himself at his breakfast table, he lit an Egyptian Simon-arched cigarette number 70, carefully reclosing the metal tin. It did not appear that he would be interrupted for a little while now, so from his briefcase he took the book he had been reading, opened to his place mark, made himself comfortable, and resumed where he had last been forced to stop. Had he actually walked streets of quiet cars, Sunday morning peace of the Tiergarten so far away? Another life. Ice cream. A taste that could never have existed. Now they boiled nettles and were glad to get them. God, he cried out, won't they stop? The huge British tanks came on. Another building, it might have been an apartment house or a store, a school or office, he couldn't tell. The ruins toppled, slid into fragments. Below in the rubble, another handful of survivors buried without even the sound of death. Death had spread out everywhere equally, over the living, the hurt, the corpses, layer after layer that already had begun to smell. The stinking, quivering corpse of Berlin. The eyeless turrets, still upraised, disappearing without protest like this one, this nameless edifice that man had once put up with pride. His arms, the boy noticed, were covered with the film of grey, the ash, partly inorganic, partly the burned, sifting final produce of life. All mixed now, the boy knew, and wiped it from him. He did not think much further. He had another thought that captured his mind, if there was thinking to be done over the screams and the hump of the shells. Hunger. For 6 days he had eaten nothing but the nettles, and now they were gone. The pasture of weeds had disappeared into a single vast crater of earth. Other dim, gaunt figures had appeared at the rim, like the boy, had stood silent and then drifted away. An old mother with a babushka tied about her grey head, basket empty under her arm. A one-armed man, his eyes empty as the basket. A girl, faded now back into the litter of slashed trees in which the boy Eric hid. And still the snake came on. Would it ever end? The boy asked, addressing no one. And if it did, what then? Would they fill their bellies, these... Freiherr? Federhof's voice came. Sorry to interrupt you, just one word. Rice jumped, shut his book. Certainly. How that man can write, he thought. Completely carried me away. Real. Fall of Berlin to the British as vivid as if it had actually taken place. Brr. He shivered. Amazing, the power of fiction. Even cheap popular fiction, to evoke. No wonder it's banned within Reich territory. I'd ban it myself. Sorry I started it, but too late. Must finish now. His secretary said, Some seamen from a German ship. They're required to report to you. Yes, Rice said. He hopped to the door and out to the front office. There, the 3 seamen wearing heavy grey sweaters, all with thick blonde hair, strong faces, a trifle nervous. Rice raised his right hand. Heil Hitler! He gave them a brief, friendly smile. Heil Hitler! They mumbled. They began showing him their papers. As soon as he had certified their visit to the consulate, he hurried back into his private office. Once more, alone, he reopened The Grasshopper Lies Heavy. His eyes fell on a scene involving Hitler. Now he found himself unable to stop. He began to read the scene out of sequence, the back of his neck burning. The trial, he realized, of Hitler. After the close of the war, Hitler in the hands of the Allies. Good God! Also Goebbels, Göring, all the rest of them, at Munich. Evidently Hitler was answering the American prosecutor. Black, flaming. The spirit of old seemed for an instant once again to blaze up. The quivering, shambling body jerked taut, the head lifted. Out of the lips that ceaselessly drooled, a croaking half-bark, half-whisper, "Deutsche, hier steh ich!" Shudders among those who watched and listened, the earphones pressed tightly, strained faces of Russian, American, British and German alike. Yes, Karl thought, here he stands once more. They have beaten us. And more, they have stripped this Superman, shown him for what he is, only a Freiherr. Rice realized that his secretary had entered the office. "I'm busy," he said angrily. He slammed the book shut. "I'm trying to read this book, for God's sake." It was hopeless, he knew it. "Another coded radiogram is coming in from Berlin," Verhoeven said. "I caught a glimpse of it as they started decoding it. It deals with the political situation." "What did it say?" Rice murmured, rubbing his forehead with his thumb and fingers. "Dr. Goebbels has gone on the radio unexpectedly. A major speech." The secretary was quite excited. "We're supposed to take the text, they're transmitting it out of code, and make sure it's printed by the press here." Yes, Rice said. The moment his secretary had left once more, Rice reopened the book. One more peek, despite my resolution. He thumbed the previous portion. In silence, Karl contemplated the flag-draped casket. Here he lay, and now he was gone, really gone. Not even the demon-inspired powers could bring him back. The man, or was it after all, Übermensch, whom Karl had blindly followed, worshipped, even to the brink of the grave. Adolf Hitler had passed beyond, but Karl clung to life. "I will not follow him," Karl's mind whispered. "I will go on, alive, and rebuild, and we will all rebuild. We must." How far, how terribly far, the leader's magic had carried him. And what was it, now that the last dot had been put on that incredible record? That journey from the isolated rustic town in Austria, up from rotting poverty in Vienna, from the nightmare ordeal of the trenches, through political intrigue, the founding of the party, to the chancellorship, to what for an instant had seemed near world domination. Karl knew. Bluff. Adolf Hitler had lied to them. He had led them with empty words. It is not too late. We see your bluff, Adolf Hitler, and we know you for what you are at last, and the Nazi Party, the dreadful era of murder and megalomaniacal fantasy, for what it is, what it was. Turning, Karl walked away from the silent casket. Rice shut the book and sat for a time. In spite of himself, he was upset. More pressure should have been put on the Japs, he said to himself, to suppress this damn book. In fact, it's obviously deliberate on their part. They could have arrested this, whatever his name is, Abendsen. They have plenty of power in the Middle West. What upset him was this. The death of Adolf Hitler, the defeat and destruction of Hitler, the Partei, and Germany itself, as depicted in Abendsen's book, it all was somehow grander, more in the old spirit than the actual world, the world of German hegemony. How could that be? Rice asked himself. Is it just this man's writing ability? They know a million tricks, those novelists. Take Dr. Goebbels. That's how he started out writing fiction. Appeals to the base lusts that hide in everyone, no matter how respectable on the surface. Yes, the novelist knows humanity, how worthless they are, ruled by their testicles, swayed by cowardice, selling out every cause because of their greed. All he's got to do is thump on the drum, and there's his response. And he laughing, of course, behind his hand at the effect he gets. Look how he played on my sentiments, Herr Rice reflected, not on my intellect. And naturally he's going to get paid for it. The money's there. Obviously, somebody put the Hundsfott up to it, instructed him what to write. They'll write anything if they know they'll get paid. Tell any bunch of lies, and then the public actually takes the smelly brew seriously when it's dished out. Where was this published? Herr Rice inspected the copy of the book. Omaha, Nebraska. Last outpost of the former plutocratic U.S. publishing industry, once located in downtown New York and supported by Jewish and communist gold. Maybe this Abendsen is a Jew. They're still at it, trying to poison us. This Jüdisches Buch. He slammed the covers of the Grasshopper violently together. Actual name probably Abenstein. No doubt the SD has looked into it by now. Beyond doubt, we ought to send somebody across into the RMS to pay Herr Abenstein a visit. I wonder if Kreutz von Mehre has gotten instructions to that effect. Probably hasn't, with all the confusion in Berlin. Everybody too busy with domestic matters. But this book, Rice thought, is dangerous. If Abenstein should be found dangling from the ceiling some fine morning, it would be a sobering notice to anyone who might be influenced by this book. We would have had the last word, written the postscript. It would take a white man, of course. I wonder what Skorzieni is doing these days. Rice pondered, reread the dust jacket of the book. The kike keeps himself barricaded, up in this high castle. Nobody's fool. Whoever gets in and gets him won't get back out. Maybe it's foolish. The book, after all, is in print. Too late now. And that's Japanese-dominated territory. The little yellow men would raise a terrific fuss. Nevertheless, if it was done adroitly, if it could be properly handled. Freiherr Hugo Rice made a notation on his pad. Broach subject with SS General Otto Skorzieni, or better yet, Otto Ohlendorf at Amt 3 of the Reichssicherheitshauptamt. Didn't Ohlendorf head Einsatzgruppe D? And then all at once, without warning of any kind, he felt sick with rage. I thought this was over, he said to himself. Does it have to go on forever? The war ended years ago. And we thought it was finished then, but that Africa fiasco, that crazy Zeiss Inquart carrying out Rosenberg's schemes. That Herr Hope is right, he thought, with his joke about our contact on Mars populated by Jews. We would see them there, too, even with their 2 heads apiece, standing 1 foot high. I have my routine duties, he decided. I don't have time for any of these hair-brained adventures, this sending of Einsatzkommandos after Abendsen. My hands are full greeting German sailors and answering coded radiograms. Let someone higher up initiate a project of that sort. It's their business. Anyhow, he decided, if I instigated it and it backfired, one can imagine where I'd be. In protective custody, an Eastern general government, if not in a chamber, being squirted with Zyklon B hydrogen cyanide gas. Reaching out, he carefully scratched the notation on his pad out of existence, then burned the paper itself in the ceramic ashtray. There was a knock, and his office door opened. His secretary entered with a large handful of papers. Dr. Goebbels' speech in its entirety. Verderhoof put the sheets down on the desk. You must read it. Quite good. One of his best. Lighting another Simon Arzt No. 70 cigarette, Rice began to read Dr. Goebbels' speech.
This ends side 1 of cassette 4. Please turn the cassette over and start side 2 at the same point.